Welcome back. Knowing statistically who dies and where they die is going to be important for you as a leader in the outdoors and person who may be responsible for others. And you're going to see some of these statistics are not always in the wilderness, but again, good to know. So more than 1 in 4 fatal drowning victims are children 14 and younger. Well, as you can guess, most of us who are working with youth are working with these age groups, and so we need to understand that this is more than they're represented in the population. And for every child who dies from drowning, another 4 have received emergency department care for non-fatal submersion injuries. People can live a long time with brain injuries caused from hypoxia, or lack of oxygen to the brain. So we need to make sure that when we're thinking about first aid, we need to be making sure that airway and oxygen, airway and breathing are the key ABs in regards to helping people survive and live a full life. And fatal drownings do remain the second leading cause of injury and related deaths for children 1 to 14. That's significant, especially when we look at the environments, as you noted in your assignments, that where people drown, that's often preventable. When we're thinking about statistics, we can also start to think about risks and where people have the highest chance of dying, essentially. So as you're looking at this list, which one of these seem like the riskiest areas? Bathtubs, buckets, and toilets? Now, you've survived a long time probably without having any near-drowning incidents in those. But for persons with seizure disorders, drowning is the most common cause of unintentional injury and death, and that happens in the bathtub. That's the site of the highest drowning risk for people. And for bathtubs and buckets and toilets, if you're under a year age, that is also a significant risky place to be. Residential swimming pools are pretty deadly if you're between the age of 1 and 4. And then once you're in that older group, natural water, over the age of 15, people that's where they're going to drown. This is sort of a tongue-in-cheek, unfortunately, with their own vomit. But alcohol is figured into over half of the drowning fatalities, which mostly happen on boats. So take a look at your own areas, look at the statistics, understand your populations, and then you'll start to be able to understand some of the risks and realities. But for pretty much every situation, there are contributing factors to what happened. I asked you to look at and submit what were the factors that happened in your drowning situation. I'll try to post those for everybody to see. But I wanted you to take a minute to think about the actual contributing factors. Was age one of those? Were they a non-swimmer or an adolescent who feels invulnerable? Or were they just old and not able to stay with the current? Were drugs and alcohol involved? Are there just physics? We'll take a look at some of those features when we're in the practical course. But taking a look at retention ponds or intakes or those places that can pin you underneath water. So the environment, was it hot? Was it cold? Were they having some sort of heat stroke and fell in the water? Were they cold and lost consciousness from that while submerged in an ice pool? Was the time of day involved? Light and dark, meaning are you able to properly supervise nighttime swimming? Were they just tired, at the end of the day? Also, contributing factors might include physical health. Again, seizures are a great risk of death. Diabetes and having a diabetic emergency in the water after running around and swimming all day. Broken bones where you're not able to move or move in the water. Dehydration, again, impacts your ability to think, and dehydration can happen really quickly in a boat, and then the boat capsizing. Poisoning may also be a factor if you're around a pool area or within a boat situation again. And then you have other things that are chronic, and asthma might be a factor. contributing factors could also mean aquatic life. What were you doing? Were you scuba diving? Did you get into something that you weren't supposed to? Were there slippery rocks? Was there algae or tanglies or strainers? Those types of things. If water moving at 5 feet a second, which isn't all that fast, can knock you off your feet. So just knowing where you're going is going to be important. For those who are traveling in the wilderness or into remote areas, we often will come across roadways that are maybe undermined from water coming off of it. May get our vehicle stuck, which then forces us to get out of the vehicle and be in an environment that we really don't want to be in. And then looking for step-offs as you're treading the shoreline, just because it's often just a beautiful place to be and it's a very inviting place to be. So think about those contributing factors. What do you really enjoy about the water? What risks do you see in there? And understand that other people are probably going to see those things too. So, all right. I wanted to show you quickly what a retention pond, or in this case a detention pond, looks like. People are required to have a lot of these fenced in many areas, but they're a basin for either runoff or for actually retaining water for other use. Slopes do vary in them, but as you can see that they often will start fairly slow, but then they start to go down quickly. And the bottom is often very silty and can be a lot deeper than what the surface may look like at the bottom. And so people tend to get stuck down there. Now each of these usually also has a drain in it, which could also, if the flow gets going, could also capture you. So be careful even in your residential areas. Alright, so keeping this in mind, I want you to take what you've learned thus far from the entire course and then read the section on submersion incidents starting on page 70. We'll work with this information and then move on to some practice.